Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. Look here. Jamal and Monica, the story's not over. Now, you know I can only do these shows in 20-minute blocks at the most, so I had to come back with this so I can, you know what I'm saying, get y'all the end of it. I didn't want to leave y'all hanging like this, but here's what happened, man. Monica gets 15 years in the penitentiary. They ship her off to prison. Jamal said he gonna be there for her, hold her down, do all of these different types of things, right? And it wasn't even 2 or 3 months into her bid, right, that Jamal break bad on him, get him another gal. He got him somebody, you know what I'm saying, that answering the phone when Monica calls and all this and that, right? But he tells Monica, look, this is business. She just here to help out. But then when Monica asked him, how else is she helping you out? Is she helping you with everything? And he told her, yeah, she helping me with everything. Don't worry about that. I got you. I got you. Whatever you need, I'm going to make sure you straight. But see, Monica's sitting up in there and she can't get the thoughts out of her head that another woman is sleeping in her bed, that another woman is holding a man that said that he loved her. But even though she's understanding that that was not true, every man in her life has used her and abused her. So now she gets vindictive. She gets angry. She gets upset. And she finds herself in a therapy session. And while she's in this therapy session, she opens up and confides in her therapist that, you know, she didn't move their body to the dumpster, at least not by herself. She told the therapist that Jamal moved the body. It was his idea. So the therapist told her that you got to tell the truth about this. Until you get all of this out, you're not going to feel whole. And she said, I don't want to be labeled a snitch. I don't want to be labeled somebody that would do something like that. So the therapist looked at her and says, look, when have he ever done anything to protect you? You have to protect yourself. She said, no, you already in prison, so it's not going to change anything as far as your sentence, right? But you need to make sure that you hold people accountable for what they've done to you, how they made you feel. But see, Monica, that street sense came up in her, right? And she told the therapist, I'm not going to do that, but you have given me an idea. So the therapist says, what are you talking about? And Monica says, I'm not going to discuss that with you, but appreciate you. And she gets up and she walks out the room. So she gets on the phone and she tells Jamal to make sure he comes to visit her that weekend, right? You know, he had gotten, you know, on her visitation list, you know what I'm saying? But he gets to visit that weekend and they talk. And she tells him, look, you do whatever it is you want to do, but you better make sure that I'm always taken care of for the whole bid. She said, when I ask you to come see me, you better come see me. Because the very first time that you don't have money on my books, the very first time that you don't take my phone calls, the very first time you don't come to visit so I can eat. She said, I'm going to the police and I'm going to tell them that you put that body in the dumpster. So Jamal looks at her and he leans back in his chair and he says, you're bluffing. You wouldn't do that. You ain't no rat. She said, no, I ain't no rat, but I'm a survivor. And I'm not letting you or anybody else use me no more. So Jamal says, well, I can spread it around in the penitentiary that you's a rat. I got friends that's locked up in here with you, females. And she said, go ahead, do that. It still ain't going to change nothing. If I go to that DA, you going to prison. And you and I both know you ain't built like that. You can't handle prison. He looks at her and he said, okay, I got you. But you didn't have to come at me like that. She looks at him, she stands up and she said, yes, I did. For the first time in my life, I got to look out for me. Says, you won't. You've never looked out for me. Not just me. It always involved you looking out for us, but you never really did what was best for me. She walked out to VG. She looked back at him and she says, I'll call you when I want you. kept walking. Jamal gets up and leaves, walks out, gets into his car. He's sitting out there in the car and he's trying to figure out what just happened. He just got played. Better yet, it wasn't that he got played. He just got told what the business was. For the first time in his life, he was being held accountable for what he had done. Now, don't get it twisted. It's street. It's street. But see, a lot of people get locked up and they keep their mouth shut and then they get mistreated in here. But see, here's the thing. Monica wasn't going to let that happen to her. If she had to sit in here and do that time, she was going to make sure that she was going to be straight. And the only way she was going to be straight is she'd let him know, don't play with me. Do what I tell you to do. Make sure you have my book straight. How many of y'all cut like that? This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. Hold up, wait a minute. Before I log off on this one, let me say this to y'all. Look, I know a lot of y'all think y'all cut for this, built for this. You understand what I'm saying? But you're not. Nobody is. This lifestyle will bring out the worst in you. Remember that, y'all. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.